We don't normally do that crime.
You normally say welcome to Crim City.
Okay,
I'm Mark
that's
Murray.
right, okay. Welcome to Crim City. I'm Mark Murray.
I'm Josh Hanrahan, and this week we are joined by the New South Wales Police Commissioner, the first female commissioner in the history of the force, Karen Webb. Hello.
You started telling stories without me.
Don't worry.
No, I started something back in the day and his eyes glaze over.
Good, how are you? Hi, Karen, how are you?
Thank you so much for joining us.
That's okay.
On last week's episode, we spoke about a number of issues. Chief among them was the tasering of 95-year-old great-grandmother Claire Nolan down in her nursing home in Cooma. Has the past week been the toughest you've had in your career? Or
I wouldn't say the toughest. I mean, it was a tough week, no doubt, because of the terrible incident and just the ramifications for the organisation and the expectations from what I call lounge chair critics sometimes, not understanding that as much as we all want to know what happened, we've still got to follow a process. Ultimately, the officer's been charged and that's now before the court.
I think a lot of people don't understand is the amount of oversight that police have to go through. There's work cover, there's the LEC, the coroner, there's so many independent bodies. We get a lot of people criticising the police thinking they're the only ones investigating. They're not, are they?
No. It'd be all hands on deck down there or any situation like that, because we've got independent officers and in a lot of cases it's a homicide squad and they come out of Sydney with a fresh team. And
there are oversights of them as well, isn't
that's right.
Yeah.
And there's the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission and they're our oversight agency dedicated to law enforcement. So it's not like it's ICAC or the Ombudsman, it's actually Law Enforcement Conduct Commission. And they have a Inspector General as well to oversight them. So there's always someone watching someone.
when you look back at the last week, is there anything you would change?
Oh, there's always, could I have done X different or Y different? But I think in those particular circumstances, and I hope I never see that repeated, tricky. There was no right or wrong. There'll always be someone that said, well, you could have done that or you could have done this. And I think there were certain reasons that we did things at the time. And that was about protecting the family. It was about ensuring I didn't prejudice an investigation around the officer. It is delicate. So not everyone likes that, but ultimately I know that investigation will go through the process and there shouldn't be anything that I have said or done that would derail that.
You've been in the police force 34 years?
36.
36 years.
Is that longer than you've been alive? You always say that to me whenever I bring anything
Actually,
up.
I was wondering.
It is. But I was just going to say, in your early days as an officer to where you are now, where you have every move scrutinised as you did in the past week, was there any point last week where you looked back to when you first got into the police force and thought,
I think
how far you'd come?
Well, I think your life is formative, prepares you for those sorts of things. And I grew up in a small country town. I grew up with a family of boys, so you've got to learn to hold your own in that environment, and played footy with the boys and did all those tomboy type things. And then to join the police and work with a lot of guys back in the day, doing all sorts of jobs, fatals and shootings and suicides, and you do the whole lot. So you get exposed really early as a police officer, and then working in some of the specialist roles I've worked in, child abuse. And I remember some of the guys from some of the other squads would say, I don't know how you do what you do, and that prepares you for tough days, because they are tough. Like, you're talking to victims that are survivors of horrendous abuse, and you've got to listen to their story and then do the investigation, then interview the crook.
That must
objectively,
be
yeah. So
objectively.
all of those things have been really formative for me, prepared me for tough days.
But in the last 2 weeks, it's what Sydney is, isn't it? Like, so we had the tasering of the lady that's still going through the courts. Then we had a young man shot down. Obviously, it looks like a gangland hit.
Out west?
Yeah. On the Monday afternoon.
It's a big city too. And it's a dynamic city, and it's got 5 million people.
Yeah. And I know it's over 4,000 calls a day.
Well, there's over 2 million calls for service every year.
Right.
So you do the maths, and there's over.
No, we won't get him to do the maths.
But you'd like Chris Minns to do the maths with you.
I've got 140,000 calls for service for DV every year.
Yeah.
And more than 90,000 AVOs in existence at any one time.
And that's something that's being looked at now, isn't it? Like,
I mean, it's huge though.
yeah, it's massive,
isn't it? Those numbers are.
And then we've got mental health on top. Child welfare. You know, there's some 14-year-olds getting in strife at 10 o'clock at night. The parents don't give a stuff. So who do they call? The cops. So they end up being babysitters.
We're 24/7.
Yeah. But being used by all the other services who shut down at 9 to 5.
Yeah,
you know,
and I
you
suppose
pick up
that's
the
part
slack.
of my role as commissioner, and I do talk to my counterparts in other agencies about matching their service with our demand, because we are 24/7. So kids wandering streets at 3 o'clock in the morning or midnight or whatever it is, you know, we're there because we're 24/7, but that's not necessarily a policing problem. The problem is it's complex, because some of those kids, it's safer to be on the streets than at home. So they're big societal
terrible,
problems. It's tragic, it's sad, but problems like that, and we call them wicked problems because they're not easy to fix. But really, we've all got to roll up our sleeves together on this one. It's no good the police just rolling up their sleeves. Everyone's got to roll up their sleeves.
Yeah.
Why did you want to join the police force?
It was just that sense of doing something for the community, I suppose. There was a role model police officer in the town who's just the loveliest man, you know, and I met him again beginning of last year, and he's still a lovely man. I think, no wonder I thought you were great. So that was a bit of an inspiration, and I thought variety, you know, a lot of police join because they don't want to sit behind a desk. You know, every day is a different day. I mean, it's a great job. There's some terrible things, but on balance, it's a fantastic job.
And the opportunities are like, you know, I was talking to Steve Patton, the drug squad, and you go on the what do they call them when they drag all the... Eradication program. He said, how good is this? Like jumping out of a helicopter, pulling out some guy's fucking drugs. He's not real happy. And you do that, and then the next day you can be out, you know, helping somebody who's been hurt badly, and just getting that message to people that it can be quite rewarding and exciting and varied job, isn't it? And that's what the problem we have at the moment, isn't it? Around Australia, police forces, defence forces, all
I think
of them.
and it's not just law enforcement. I think it's the labour market generally. It is competitive.
Yeah.
Defence force is growing. Other agencies are growing, and others throw out carrots and things. But I think we're a great organisation. I still think, despite our size and complexity, etc., I think we're one of the best. So why not be part of one of the best? We've got a lot to be proud of. The things that officers do every day, taking statements, looking after victims, protecting people, arresting criminals, putting them before the courts.
Yeah.
It's a machine, and it works really well. We have the odd one that goes badly.
Yeah.
We own it, we report on it, and we're open to what that review shows us. And if we have to make improvements, we make improvements.
A number of the things we've just spoken about are things I know that you made a priority when you became the first female commissioner, and they were DV, child protection. I know there was a big rollout with mental health for the police force. That's obviously something that's really important at the minute too.
It is, yeah. We've got to look after our staff. 85% of the police budget is people. So we're doing a lot more in that space, so to make sure that there's access for everyone, not just a limited few. You know, we were servicing a 10% or a smaller percentage, and we really need to cater for everyone.
Really? I didn't realise it was that low.
There's some of the specialist services, There
are lots
areas.
of counselling facilities now for police, isn't there? Like,
well, particularly in those high-risk areas, if you work in child abuse and it is terrible work, then you should have access to specialist services.
so when you were starting out, those services wouldn't have really been available, were they? To the extent they are now. Like,
No,
it was
we
literally
just-
go down the pub, have a few beers, and you'll be
Probably.
right.
There
And
was there was ways of coping, I suppose, but importantly, not just adding in more to fix the problem. We're really talking more about prevention and trying to get that well-being so that we actually inoculate people better so they don't fall off a cliff at the end. I've got a strategy, recruitment, retention and refresh. And the refresh is like at that time that officers are ready to leave the organisation, then they leave with dignity and then they go on and do something else. But we need to help them with that, the transition to something else that they're well.
And what about DV, which I know is something that you spoke about a lot at the start?
You still have to,
You
right?
still have to, yeah, I know.
Because it's so topical.
Well,
and
look what happens on the weekend,
I know,
right?
and
You know, and
Horrendous death of a young woman at Liverpool.
the tragedy in that and ones like it is that we've come to learn that witnesses have come forward to talk about things previously. And had we known about that, then would the outcome have been different? You know, we don't know. We don't know the answer. It's a complex area.
Yeah, it really is, isn't
because you're talking about a relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship or some other family situation, then there's a whole lot of theories around battered wife syndromes and other things why women don't leave and coercive control. So it's really, really complex, and it's important that we do whatever we can to support victims and then get offenders before the court or treatment or whatever they need. Often happens behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And
unpredictable as well, and just hidden.
we don't know what goes on inside that relationship, but obviously the outcome's terrible. And why youth and the next generation is another of my priorities is because we do see that intergenerational trauma and problems that come out of kids that are exposed to domestic violence. They're problems that we've all got to get together and roll our sleeves up. It's not just a policing problem. You can't arrest your way out of that.
What would be, apart from this job, obviously, the most favourite job or command that you...
It's a bit like, I don't have a favourite child, but I really have enjoyed...
My mum does, it's me.
I really... I've really enjoyed whatever I've done. I've just taken that philosophy. Just enjoy what you're doing.
Josh wanted to know if you live and breathe crime.
yeah, so we go home and chat about it, and people want to chat to us about it, and you know, and you get asked about it, and whenever you go to a party and somebody asks what you do, and you tell them.
And I get recognised
No, I
on
usually
TikTok.
get the the speeding fine, or that's the usually can
Really?
you help me with this speeding fine?
Funny you should bring that up. It's not.
I can't help you with that. Sorry.
That's I didn't think so.
I didn't grow up in New South Wales, and something that has struck me is I find Sydney to be what I call it almost a city of two cities. There's quite a difference from east to west, in my opinion. How do you look at Sydney as a whole?
Oh, I never really thought about it like that. You know, I just think that each suburb and each area has its own little idiosyncrasies and culture. And so one of my priorities about that commands are connected to their community is that each command needs to understand their own community. Because when I was the commander at Holroyd, then that community is different to the Hills or Maroubra or wherever. So they're all got their unique things that police and the commanders really need to understand what they are. There's not one size fits all. A community out west might have some different needs for whatever reason.
Is there anything bubbling along that we don't know about that you can tell us about?
A scoop?
That'd be good. With my name first.
Yeah, right. Jeez.
Car theft seems to be, that's a new phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's an Australia-wide thing. I actually heard about that from the WA commissioner. We talk as a group of commissioners, and he said what we're seeing is that kids younger and younger are stealing cars but recording it and using social media, to big note. And so it's become a bit of a competition.
Yeah.
And what scares me, though, is that those kids, I don't know how they haven't killed themselves or someone else yet. So that keeps me awake at night.
Yeah. Again, how do you combat that? That's really hard, isn't it?
It's very hard. Although we've got a great operation running out at Northwest, Strike Force Sweetenham, and it's getting great results. Just thinking really quite broadly about tackling that crime problem.
In what way would you think?
Oh, just using everything available to us, whatever data we can use to help investigate rather than just go, we'll wait for the DNA or we'll wait for the fingerprints to get back. We don't have time. CCTV from anywhere, really just got to be a bit more creative.
The bigger thing is those platforms by showing them. I mean, if they didn't have the platform, then they're not going to get any kicks, are they?
Well, yeah. So we're working with the tech companies about that. They're quite responsive in Australia, even though they're US-based companies or overseas-based companies, to remove that content. I think that's another thing too, is about tackling things differently. We've got to think differently.
Commissioner, last question. It's been a long career, 36 years. You've gone through every single rank there is to go through. Is there a moment, a highlight,
My career highlights. There's been so many. I don't even know where to start.
Is there a case that you...
Like it's sad, but some of the most rewarding cases were child abuse cases. And the hard thing about child abuse cases is it's the victim against the perpetrator, and often they're not convicted. And I remember getting a card from this young boy. He'd handwritten it to say thank you for helping me, and I felt hopeless because I hadn't really done anything. I mean, I obviously charged the guy and I think he was acquitted, or it was no build or something, but I still got a card from him and I thought, wow. So you do make a difference. It might not feel like you're making a difference, but you are.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Crim City. I'm Mark Murray.
I'm Josh Hanrahan. This episode's been produced and edited by Jasper Leake.
And executive producer Dan Box.
If you're a CrimeX Plus subscriber, I hope you're enjoying your early and ad-free access to this podcast. We've got a bunch of other great new series. One to look out for at the moment is The Missing. Listen early and ad-free at CrimeX or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, you can see us weekly on TikTok. To learn more, visit dailytelegraph.com.au.